fraudulent.
I've got 7 o'clock.
Dave
so I can get started then. Are we all set, Laura? Yeah. All right. So we'll start this board meeting with public comments. Do we have anyone signed up?
Alan Bailey.
Selectman Bailey, you're up.
The microphone's working.
Good evening. Alan Bailey from Troy. A couple of weeks ago, I stood here and told you that I would be submitting a petition warrant article asking the voters to change the funding formula from the current 75-25 to 0-100. We're not going to be doing that. We crunched the numbers. Frankly, had trouble making a lot of sense out of some of them, especially where the state aid came in. In fact, about a week ago, I asked Janet McCullough for some help. I think most of you know Janet. She's the town treasurer in Troy, and she knows more about municipal finance and even school funding than just about anybody that I know. And Janet spent a week working on those numbers, and we met yesterday, and we discussed this, along with a few other people who have taken an interest in this. And we think that the best way to go is to return to the old tried and true 50-50 formula. Now, there's a lot to be said for that 0-100, and over the last couple of weeks, I've gotten a lot of feedback on the proposal to go 0-100, most of it positive, some of it negative. The negative feedback tended to come from people in other towns who would be negatively impacted by this change. People who didn't have a whole lot to say 5 years ago when it changed from 50-50 to 75-25. But we think that if we go with the 50-50, a couple of things will happen. One is that the spread will be diminished. By the spread, I mean the tax rate from the highest rate of the 6 towns to the lowest rate. That spread will be minimized if we go with 50-50. Also, 50-50 is achievable on a vote. If we did go with the 0-100, I'm not sure what would have happened at the deliberative session, but I have no confidence at all that it would have passed on a ballot in March. So 50-50 is what we're planning to do. We're redoing the petition, gathering signatures for it right now. But I'm going to ask all of you to help us with this. As you go back to your towns, please talk to your select boards, talk to your concerned citizens, and see if we can get them on board with 50-50. See if we can stop the infighting among the towns. And maybe, with luck, by the middle of March, we will go back to being a cooperative school district instead of the uncooperative school district that we seem to have become. Thank you.
Is there anyone else with public comments? I think I have a member of the board that may have had a question for you.
Mr. Bailey, you said you crunched the numbers. Do you have... Mr. Bailey, you said you have numbers that you crunched. Do you have any numbers to share with the board?
I do not.
You have a business manager do that.
I don't think those microphones are working either.
Thank you. Moving on to matters that require board action. I was asked to include, actually under public comments, I'm sorry, student representative report.
So, we're looking into going on Christmas break, so that's really exciting. But a quick kind of report. So, we had a winter pep rally last week where Zach Morrell announced the Dude Be Nice winners, you know, the ones who were the nicest people in Monadnock for the quarter. And they were, our student was Tom Pouliot, and our staff was Mrs. Russell. So, you know, that was pretty great for them. And we then, during the pep rally, it was announced the MCs for that pep rally were Tom Pouliot and Brooklyn O'Brien. And I'll let you do the other two.
So, also 2 weeks ago we had the holiday show. It went very, very well. We did have to push our Saturday night performance into Sunday due to weather, but attendance was great. From social media, we got a lot of comments back to the kids about how much they loved it, about how much the kids loved it, which was a very good, made everybody feel very, very nice. Besides that, for in the school as well, we have our door decorations, which overall people have been looking at. It's very, very festive. Everybody has been stopping and looking at them. They've put a lot of work into them, and from what I understand, they're in wing classrooms are decorating them.
Yep.
Wing classrooms have been decorating them, and sometimes kids from individual classrooms will help out. But it's been a very good feel around the school overall, especially with, like Justin said, the upcoming break.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Now, moving on to matters that require board action, I would like to put an agenda topic of snow dates and setting snow dates, just in case we have some cancellations here. And do I have any board member who has an idea of when the snow dates should take place if we were to be snowed out on a particular Tuesday? So right now we meet on the 1st and the 3rd Tuesdays. Is it a feeling of a board member we should move to the following Tuesday, the following Wednesday?
I'd make that motion. It seems to make sense to do that, keep it on a Tuesday.
Is there a second for that motion? Okay, is there any discussion on this?
Yeah.
My only concern is that a lot of the committee meetings happen on Tuesdays, and we'd be bumping out committee meetings that may only happen once a month, once every other month.
Okay,
And also, the budget committee is the 4th Tuesday.
yes, it
Right.
is. Yeah, and right in the same room.
Yeah.
Yep. Any other discussion?
Would you read the motion again?
The motion is that if we miss the school board meeting on the 1st or the 3rd Tuesday, we would move it to the 2nd or 4th respectively.
Thank you.
Yes?
Yeah, I'd like to say that, I'm not tied to a Tuesday specifically. It just seemed like it made sense. But if there are committee meetings that are going to get bumped, Wednesday or Thursday, I don't think anybody wants to come Friday night. Is that the consensus?
So it sounds like you would amend your motion if somebody had a different idea?
Sure.
Does anyone have another suggestion?
My suggestion would be for the next available day. So if it were a Tuesday and it got snowed out, move it to that exact next day, which is Wednesday, and you move on. That way you keep timeliness in between meetings.
I'd second that.
Sure, I take that as friendly.
And so are you saying that if it were also a snow day on Wednesday, then we would move it to Thursday?
That is correct.
Okay. And just bear in mind that we have to post 24 hours in advance for a public meeting. If we know that we're snowed out on a Tuesday, we'll promptly post for the following day if this motion passes. Eric?
Can't we just add to our postings that if we're snowed out, that it'll take place 24 hours afterwards?
I think that is allowed under the RSA. We'd want to be extra careful and post it in anyway.
Definitely.
All right, any other discussion? The motion is now that we would move the school board meeting to the next available school day. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Were you opposed, Wayne?
Yes.
Okay. Any abstentions? Good. All right, moving on to the next topic. This is a discussion about a breach of confidentiality. I need to inform the members of the board who are not already aware that we've had a breach of confidentiality by one of our board members. Following our most recent school board meeting on December 5th, Mr. Moriarty shared information with the press that had been discussed only in non-public session. The minutes of that non-public session had been sealed by a 2/3 vote. Further, he shared information that he learned by virtue of his official position, which was exempt from discussion, from disclosure under RSA 91A5, and he knew that that would adversely affect the reputation of the district employee. As we discuss this, we'll need to be very careful to address the specific actions of Mr. Moriarty, focusing only on his actions and comments, and not revealing additional information about the employee's subject matter. Specific statements of concern are highlighted in the Keene Sentinel articles that I handed out to you a little bit earlier. Everyone got those? Okay. Prohibited statements reported in the articles are suspended with pay. Duties are being shared between existing employees, which cannot go on very long. She continues to be compensated. Suspension has nothing to do with financial issues. Staff were also told of the suspension. As many of us know, some of these statements are not true, others are confidential. These statements were also reported on a number of radio stations. I personally heard the report on Sunny 97.7. Accordingly, I move to publicly censure Mr. Moriarty for a breach of confidentiality and a violation of our board member code of ethics. If I get a second, I'll share more under discussion.
Second.
I understand it's not common for a board chair to make a motion directly, but as a matter of leadership, I didn't want to leave this responsibility to any other member of the board. I've shared 3 pieces of information, and I'll elaborate on their importance. The first is the definition of censure that's in your packet. Policy BCA, which is our board member code of ethics, and RSA 42.1, which addresses breach of confidentiality. Discussion of an employee's status violates policy BCA, board member code of ethics, and violates the employee's privacy. So that we understand the gravity of this situation, please know that any person doing this could be charged with libel or slander. Further, an individual participating in this type of conduct could be removed from office under 42.1A, manner of dismissal, breach of confidentiality. Under policy BCA, I've highlighted point 8, respect the confidentiality of information that is privileged under applicable law or is received in confidence or executive session. And point 9, recognize that no individual member has the authority to speak or act on behalf of the entire board except as specifically designated to do so by board action. I welcome further discussion on this matter. Yes, sir.
All I have to say is that meeting was not the sole source of that data.
All right. Would anyone like to request a roll call vote on this, or can we move forward with a traditional vote?
Well, I think if you do, if there was I would say that you should probably have a roll call vote for this, a detailed roll call vote,
Okay.
in order to have a raise of the hands on this.
So hearing no further discussion, Laura, could you begin the roll call vote? Oh, sorry, Jeremy.
Phyllis. We clearly state
The motion is that Mr. Moriarty should be publicly censured for his actions.
Was there a second?
Yes, there was. It was Betty. Did anyone have any other questions on what censure means, or what this does, or what the effect of the passage or not passage of the motion would be? Yes?
What are the, I'm just reading this really quick. The other options open to the board are what?
This would be the first step in the process.
The process of what?
So if an individual is publicly censured, then at the board's will, we could take further action. But publicly censuring is the appropriate first action when you're not pleased with the way that a board member has handled him or herself.
I don't understand why we're proceeding so fast here. We just got this tonight. And I think we should have a couple of weeks to think on it, because this is serious.
this.
And I don't vote on the censorship unless I've got all the facts. And I think I'm missing a couple. I want to know, I don't care who, was it a public person that brought this to the attention, a newspaper, or yourself, or other board members?
Mr. Moriarty is quoted in the newspaper articles that I handed out to you. And in the articles, it states that he sent emails to the reporter.
Has our lawyer read this over, that he is violating it?
Yes.
And that's, your statements tonight are from him?
What I just read to you, I wrote myself, but it has been reviewed by others. By others, I mean my vice chair, Lisa, and also the lawyer.
I have a question.
Yes.
Mr. Moriarty, are the quotes accurate?
The quotes are accurate. The fact is, that meeting is not the sole source of that data. I will stick with that statement, meaning just what I said. It's not the sole source of the data that's in the articles.
Nick, I think you had a question?
Yeah, I was just going to ask, we haven't really heard much from Neil on this, so.
Well, I just said it.
Okay.
That's not the sole source. If it goes too far, you may get my charge back, but you do what you want. But remember, that article is correct, and you guys are not the sole source the last Tuesday, or last Tuesday's meeting of that information.
Okay. Is there any other further discussion? Winston?
I'm not going to vote to go forward with this until we've had more discussion. I think the respect to the board member is very high. If we think it's out of line, I haven't read the RSA on how, if it goes beyond that step, and I just would vote no tonight.
Okay. But I haven't heard you make a motion to table. And I just want to be very clear.
I was thinking about it,
Okay.
but I don't know what good it would do.
Okay. So, Jeremy, I think it's time for the vote.
Phyllis.
Yes.
Wynn.
No.
Neil.
Pass.
Nick.
Abstain.
Brian.
Yes.
Bob.
Yes.
Rob.
Yes.
Eric.
No.
Betty.
Yes.
Lisa.
Yes.
6.5.
Gotta go back to no, he passed.
Oh, he passed. He didn't abstain. Sorry. Neil.
Count.
6599 yes. 2.236 no. 1.288 abstain.
You didn't ask me. I passed.
So she said.
She passed.
She said
Yep,
pass.
Phyllis passed.
Yes.
I thought she had said
I thought she said passed. Sorry. Okay, so Phyllis has passed.
No.
You want the new count?
What's the count?
5.484 yes, 3.351 no, 1.288 abstain, 2.876 absent.
No.
So, is it just simple majority?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so it passes, 5.484 yes, 4.426 no.
Okay. I've provided the meaning of vote of no confidence in the packets as well. And in reading that, I'd like to now ask whether a board member feels that it would be appropriate to move a vote for no confidence.
Lisa, can you define what that means?
Sure, if you'd like. That was a yes, please. Oh,
Can you read it out loud?
I'll read it out loud if you want me to.
A vote of no confidence is a statement or vote which states that a person in a position of responsibility, government, managerial, etc., is no longer deemed fit to hold that position because, perhaps because they are inadequate in some respect or failing to carry out obligations or are making decisions that other members feel are detrimental.
Okay. So would anyone like to move a vote of no confidence? All
I
right.
have a question.
Yes.
I guess one wonder I have, Neil, is do you feel what you did is wrong?
No. Not that we should be going back and forth like that, but
Just want you to speak, you know. Can you tell us why you did what you did? Or do you prefer not to?
ask the chair if you can do this, because this is, you don't have any motion on the floor.
I'll allow it.
I feel that Ms. Fortune is being attacked by a police, by a judge, and by a jury, all in one person. We do not know what Ms. Fortune is being charged with. We do not know the length of this suspension. And here we are. We probably will, as Betty said, probably be the jury here, but in the meantime, we're not. We would just as better off if she was in Russia. She would know more than she knows now. So I tried to clean up a couple items. And I, again, will say, you're not the single source.
If you had it to do over again, would you do that?
Probably.
At that, I have to say, when a board feels like it can't trust one of its members, we all suffer from a lack of information. Because if our administrators feel like, I'll get to you, if our administrators feel like they can't freely share things that we need to know, then there's a fear and apprehension that we can't get past. Things have to be kept confidential.
Again, I'm going to say I don't necessarily agree with you saying I got it from that meeting.
It's very damaging to the function of a board. if you
Again,
don't
I
have
will
trust.
say I didn't get it from that meeting. But you guys are insisting that I did.
All right, Nick?
Yeah, but I just want to be very clear that you're using the term "we" and the board as if you're speaking for all of us, and you seem to be pushing forward these motions or asking other board members to make these motions. It's kind of, that seems to be rocky territory for me.
I was very intentional about not talking with other board members about what would happen tonight or lobbying other board members. I think you could ask anyone here. I haven't brought this up with anyone. If I feel there's a certain action that we need to take, I haven't taken a position with anyone verbally.
I think it's just the verbiage that you're using right now when you're saying "we" and the board feels. And you can say "I feel" if you're looking for these motions, but please don't speak for everybody here.
My mistake if I did that, but I didn't feel that I did. Betty?
Personally, I believe in progressive discipline. We've taken a step, and I would stop here for now.
Bob? Okay. That brings us then to our next action, and that would be to review the warrant articles that we have in our packets.
I get to the game anyway.
We do need to finalize the warrant articles this evening. This isn't the evening that we need to put our supports or does not support. We could if we wanted to. However, we do need to make sure that we're approving the wording on the warrant articles that are available to us at this time. Look first at warrant article number 1, which doesn't have actual numbers, and we,
This board has not identified a budget number to put in the first portion of this warrant article at this time.
the budget committee identifies that number.
The budget committee will identify the default number, and what's happened in the last couple of years is this board determines what they feel the appropriate budget number would be for the actual operating budget. And then the budget committee takes that under consideration at the budget hearing on January 11th and either raises it or lowers it or keeps it the same.
Do we have a default number?
Not at this time. The default committee has not made a final recommendation on a default. I believe they're planning to do that the 9th? Yes, thank you, Brian.
Is there any discussion about this article otherwise in terms of wording? Nick?
I think in years past, we've looked at the budget that's been proposed by administration and made considerations based on what those changes are. I think that's what should take place, and so that we have that number in this article when we vote on the language. That's what we've done since I've been on the board. I think that would be the smart thing to do moving forward.
Lisa, can you tell us what the administration's number is?
Sure. At the November 4th meeting, we proposed a preliminary budget of $31,323,181. That did not include the $970,000 pass-through for nutrition services.
I'm sorry,
So,
Lisa, could you repeat that? It's 31.3.
$31,323,181.
Okay.
You would need to add in the $970,000 for food service. That would bring that number to $32,293,181. And just as a quick recap, that budget number included a reduction of fuel and energy costs of about $75,000 over the current year's budget, a reduction in elementary supplies by about $6,000, a reduction in the substitute line by about $18,900, a reduction of personnel by about 3.5 positions overall, a reduction in contracted services of about $200,000. And as you'll recall, where that was from was the previous year, this board had allocated some reserved fund balance from the previous year to use for this past school year in case of excessive special education costs, and we did not do that. So we had to reduce this budget accordingly for that. Additional unallocated 17-18 funds. This year's budget was $31,776,000. We did not allocate in our working budget within the district about $89,000 of that, and so we reducted that out of our proposed budget for next year.
Sorry to interrupt, Lisa. One thing, can you be clear about last year's budget and the 970,000?
What about it?
The budget number you just read for this past year?
That 31 million did not include the 970,000. Thank you. Thank you. And then we also decreased NEASC fees by about 20,000. On the other side, we looked at adding a .5 social studies teacher at the middle high school to facilitate the revised social studies curriculum and additional social studies credit at the high school. We also looked at transitioning to adding one library media specialist at the elementary level for all of our district elementary schools to provide appropriate support, not just for media, but also for STEM and some of the technology pieces that we have incorporated into library and media time at the elementary schools. We also included an increase of about $8,000 for field trips, $11,300 for middle high school equipment and supplies, and about $18,000 in professional development. All of that came to that $31,323,000 total, which reflected a 1.43% decrease over this current year's budget, which amounted to a decrease in dollars of $453,091.
Can you tell us how this compares to last year's Article 1?
Don't have last year's Article 1 in front of me. Can you pull it up?
Are there any other questions?
Yeah, as long as we're on this topic, I'd like to make a motion that we put forward administration's proposed budget this year that without the $970,000, $31,323,181. With the $970,000, $293,181, which would reflect the 1.43% reduction and roughly $450,000 reduction.
Second.
Thank you. Bob? Okay.
Slow on the draw.
Any other questions? Any luck with last year's?
Yep, so the warrant amount was $32,153,183. Does that the final one?
Yep.
You sure? No, that was the deliberative version. Because it was adjusted at deliberative to match the default. Do the sample ballot. There we go. Oh, gosh.
Same thing. It's 32, 153.
32, 153, 183. Let me do that math real quick.
Why don't you just round it?
I can't see. Can you type it again? I don't know why that's not. It doesn't seem right to me.
That's what Ray posted.
Does anyone know off the top of their head whether this is higher or lower than last year?
It's lower.
Oh, yeah, it's lower. I think what you were asking was whether or not the language was the same.
No. What I was asking was the number after the 970,000.
So here's.
Are you looking for the default budget? What-
Yeah.
No, the number that appeared on the warrant,
Okay.
Article 1 for last year.
Okay, so according to the minutes, it is 32, 153.
20.
That doesn't work.
So then we're slightly over last year.
That doesn't make any sense.
You want to table this for motion?
Because last year's was the default.
Can we come back to this while she?
Was that a motion to table?
I'd like to make a motion to table this
Second.
while the superintendent looks at the information to give us more accurate data.
All in favor?
Aye.
Moving on to Article 2. If anyone would like to move Article 2.
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion on Article 2? This was brought to us by the Finance and Facilities Committee.
It was the wrong year. That was 2016's number.
It's on the website.
I apologize.
This is the 1.4 the same as last year?
That was going to be my question.
One, is it?
I believe so, yes.
Then this warrant article would be essentially the same as it was last year. Same purpose, same dollar value. Nate?
Yep. This article last year failed, I think, by 10 votes, or is it 12 votes? 17? Was it 17?
Or maybe 17.
Thanks, Dave.
Do you have that tattooed? I think I would like to see it move forward at the same amount because of the way that it was presented to us and those improvements were structured. I think it's important that we preserve that number so that it can be done properly. I have a little more confidence this year that maybe this is going to make it this year. We get 17 more people, so.
Betty?
Since a year has passed, is the 1.4 still a good number, or should it be higher?
The Finance and Facilities Committee has reviewed this at length,
Okay.
and they're still recommending.
Okay.
Nick, Phyllis, did anyone? No? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Good. Are we ready to move back to Article 1?
Second. I'm in the DRA site, so I
All
should
right,
be able to find it.
we'll move on to Article 3.
I have it if you'd like it. Found it. 32,746,272.
And that was after the 970. Did you say 32,976?
32,746, 272.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry
So
for
seeing that we're back on Article 1, is there any further discussion?
The only thing that we don't have for this is the default budget, which is going to be out of our control for populating anyways, so I'm more than comfortable with if we approve this number to vote on the warrant article.
Realizing, of course, that this is only temporary. The Budget Committee owns both numbers.
Could go up or down.
But the procedure of this board has been to select a number for
agree,
the
but-
proposed, yeah.
His statement was incorrect. They own both numbers.
They do. All right, any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
I'm still-
Thank you.
Now, Lisa, was that for just the number, the board approving that number? Do we have to approve Article 1 now?
We had already approved the wording of Article 1 in a
Okay.
previous meeting. So now the number is approved.
This is for both of them.
Moving on to Article 3. To see if we'll raise and appropriate $210,000 for asbestos abatement and flooring in the middle and high school Cutler Mount Caesar, replacing a portion of the Gilsum Elementary School roof, installation of a new well at Emerson School, updating handicapped accessible restroom at Mount Caesar. Would anyone like to move this article?
I would move it.
Second.
Any discussion here? Yes.
First question, so we just have the reviews done in the schools. And before we make any decisions, I'm good with the asbestos abatement in there, but I question whether or not we leave the remodeling piece until we get, some more decisions made on what we're doing.
Dave, did you hear that question? No. No? Could you come up and talk with us for a second?
Set of microphones right here. You gotta speak in. Don't mind. You have to get close enough to go up.
Is our audio system on tonight?
Should be. Yeah, it's on, it's just too low.
I don't believe these are the mics that,
Do they feed in, but
Oh,
the
they do?
volume might not be turned up?
Yeah, they're on.
Volume's not loud enough for you.
What was the question?
So, in the 210,000, we have all the reports done for all the schools, structure, facilities,
Yes, you
that
do.
piece there. So I see
Does
here,
everyone here have them?
Not
Yes.
yet.
Okay.
just about.
Oh, we got them electronic?
Yeah, they got them
Yeah,
electronically, but I
electronically.
brought hard copies in case anyone wanted one tonight too. So, if you want one, I can hand those out.
so just the piece for replacing the roof in the Gilsum School, are we saying that we're calling that a facility safety issue right now, or it's just age?
No, and I think I mentioned a few years ago, you're getting to the point of there is no real facility safety issue
Yeah.
like there used to be. Not like there used to be, Rob. Okay, there were life safety issues. Sprinkler systems, alarms, things like that. We still have things we need to maintain, okay? Excuse me. Life safety, I'm not sure we really want to keep that label on some of this after 7 years of doing a lot of the life safety things that we've done around here.
So,
That's my opinion.
no, I appreciate that. So, would you feel comfortable calling this a maintenance issue included in that, or are we talking needs to be
You're hitting me
replaced?
right now. What do I want to come up with for a title on that? I'm not sure right now.
And I only ask it,
Is it still renovations? No, not really. I mean, there's upkeep to all your buildings that will happen.
Yep.
If we don't continue them, you're going to have large bills you're going to face that are mandatory to do.
So my question is, in the article above, we are asking for money for a building renovation, and then in the second one, I feel like we potentially miscommunicate asbestos abatement and building maintenance. That's the only thing I want to make sure we're clear about to voters right now.
Roofing is not a health safety.
agree.
I mean,
Yeah.
it was in Fitzwilliam. We had 3 layers on the section of roof, so it could be, but it's not here in Gilsum. It needs to be redone. Okay? It needs to have a new roof system. The shingles are going within the next year or two anyhow. They're pretty bad shape. As we'll have other places throughout the district in the next 4 or 5 years anyhow.
Yep. Second question, the handicap bathroom at Mount Caesar, is that in new construction or the old piece that we haven't renovated yet?
That is in a piece that we did, couldn't fit it into the budget.
Okay, that's kind of
Yes.
where I was getting to. So
Okay.
are we talking like misconstructed on the constructor part? And we dismissed it and didn't
What it was,
come
we
back?
did bathrooms over there.
Yep.
This is a bathroom that, it's changing the function of that bathroom to not just ADA, but we need a shower to be able to take care of kids that are on a bed, things like that. So it's beyond ADA,
Gotcha.
all right?
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions on this article?
I would just say I'm comfortable with this aggregation.
And I'll just remind the board that we're looking at these articles as a whole, and we're asking ourselves, do we believe that if we put all of the articles onto the warrant, will they all pass? Will we jeopardize one article by putting another? So the process is for us to decide now what we think the voters should see and what we think the voters shouldn't have to consider this year. And we're considering the total tax impact. Yes.
Yeah, but I say this every year at the deliberative session. I'm going to say it now as well. We have local districts that are building new schools that are talking about building even more new schools. We employ people full-time here to look into these issues. We've hired engineers to look into these issues. And administration's coming forward with what they feel is necessary to provide basic maintenance and basic improvements to these schools. And I trust administration and the professionals that we've hired who have done the analysis work to, you know, this makes sense to me. I think it should be supported.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
So as probably one of the people who pushed for the evaluations of the buildings, Dave, are these two projects mentioned in the assessments of those buildings? In other words, the Monadnock, the Mount Caesar one that was just pushed forward, and now the Gilsum one, are those mentioned as lacking in terms of the building health in these reports?
The Gilsum one is.
The Gilsum one is?
Yes. Remember, Mount Caesar, because of work we have done the last few years, we said, okay, we know that wood section needs to be done, so let's not, I don't want to say waste, but did we need the engineers to tell us we need to redo that wood section? No. So we really didn't need to spend that money.
I just wanted to make that clear. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Anyone else on this article? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Good. As you can see, Article 4 is...
All set? Any other questions?
I may need you to speak to the next.
Article 4?
Yeah, Article 4. No, never mind. This is not you. Finance and facilities.
Thank you.
Your facilities. This is finance. The finance portion of the committee has recommended that Article 4 not go on to the warrant this year. And that is supported by Jeremy. That was your proposal, yeah?
Yeah, from the administration, yeah.
From the administration. So we won't be including Article 4. However, Article 5 becomes the new Article 4 to see if the school district will vote to raise and appropriate $1 million to be $1, sorry, $1 to be added to the Special Education Expendable Trust Fund previously established. Would anyone like to move that?
So moved.
Second. And would anyone like to offer an explanation as to why it is $1?
I will. There was a discussion at Finance and Facilities about, obviously, the concern you expressed about dollar amounts on the warrant and looking at the total warrant. Even though this comes from unallocated fund balance at the end of the school year, it's still money on the warrant. And we believe, I think it's about $360,000 in that expendable trust right now. And so there was a discussion about whether we needed to continue to build that up or if that would be sufficient. And so I think the committee decided that it would be best debated at the full board about what that dollar amount should be. In order for me to put this on the warrant, and whether to debate it here and decide or to have it go to deliberative session and be addressed there or even at budget hearing. But in order to get this on the warrant, I can't put it into the DRA system. It won't accept a warrant article with a zero allocation initially. So $1 is the placeholder in order for me to be able to add it to the warrant.
Okay. And again, this allows someone to amend the article at deliberative session if they want to.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I'd like to add a little bit of extension to Ms. Witt's conversation. Putting it on $1 leaves it open to be changed if an offense comes up between now and February, we can add to it. We used to do this with the maintenance article. We didn't do it here. But if we get a kid comes in that needs a lot of money, maybe we'd want to put more than $1 there.
Any other discussion? Nick?
Article 4 was about the before and after school. That was for the ACES program. Article 5 is about special education. So what are we talking about 5 replaces for?
5 becomes the new 4.
So you're just shifting the numbers?
Yes.
You're going to, okay. So we're not talking about doing away with the before and after school program? Is that?
No, just the warrant article for this year is unnecessary.
Okay. All right, and that's due to the funding that we received?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, do we have to do something similar with maintaining a balance in that account in order to keep it alive? Wasn't that fully drawn down this year?
It's not zero.
Okay, so it's
Close
not.
to zero, but it's not actually zero.
So we have like 50 cents in there?
I think it's
Okay.
like $5.
$5? Okay. And we don't feel that we're going to need any additional funds in there based on the additional funding that we received this year?
Correct.
Okay. Just want that to be clear for the public.
I'd like to explain why it's called the trust fund. If we'd put this in originally, they were looking to money to open up and have what was called ACES. If they put the money directly to ACES without a trust fund, and it was voted down, that would have closed that program down. By putting the money in the trust fund, it doesn't pass, you just don't get the money, i.e. like last year, didn't get the money, but ACES continued. That's why it's a trust.
Okay. Anyone else? All in favor of approving Article 4 regarding the Special Education Expendable Trust Fund?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. Article 6, as you see in front of you, is now the new Article 5. To see if the school district will vote to approve cost items included in the 3-year CBA, collective bargaining agreement, between the school board and the specialists. Would anyone like to move this article?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion here? These are the same numbers that were presented to us when we ratified the contract at our most recent school board meeting 2 weeks ago. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? That brings us to Article 7, which becomes the new Article 6. To see if the school district will vote to approve the cost items included in the 1-year collective bargaining agreement with MDEA, which is our teachers' union. Again, same numbers that we approved and ratified 2 weeks ago. Anyone like to move this?
So moved.
Second.
All right, all in favor? Oh, sorry about discussions, go ahead.
I'm going to be voting no on this article because the $345,000 insurance benefit pool is not resolved in this article.
All right, anyone else? Now, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No?
Abstentions?
One abstention.
Okay. That brings us to Article 8, which is the new Article 7 for now, unless we get another collective bargaining agreement. To see if the Monadnock Regional School District will vote to approve the cost items included in, this is
Placeholder.
the placeholder for a potential collective bargaining agreement with MESA, which is our support staff. Would be Article 7, yes.
And we haven't even received these numbers yet. I believe we're doing that in non-public tonight.
We will discuss the status of this contract in non-public tonight.
So you're asking us to approve an article with no dollar amount?
That wasn't my intent.
Okay.
No,
All right.
I meant to move on to Article 10, which
Okay.
would be the new Article 8.
Thank you.
It is amazing.
All right, to listen to the opinions of purely advisory nature with regards to the conduct of school affairs in the ensuing year. That's Article 8 for right now. What- Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Yes, discussion?
I know this is tradition, but no one has given me an honest explanation as to why we need this in there. I shouldn't say honest, an understandable one. We're looking to reduce the number of articles, and I look at this and say, what are we doing? What is this? And I have yet to come to any conclusion. So if someone could explain it to me why we do it, that would be awesome.
I'll say when we most recently discussed it, the most compelling argument was because if we take this off, it sends a message that we're not willing to listen to the opinions, which is not the case.
The opinions of,
They're purely advisory opinions of the people who give us opinions. Our public are.
I think our people are smarter than that.
Yeah. Go ahead, Wynn.
In tradition, there's never been many people left after this article comes up anyways. And people still have a feeling that the only way they can be heard is coming to the deliberative session. That's what we have now. Before, this was designed for like a town meeting session. People would get up and speak their mind. And I think it should be there for the reason that this is a chance for people that may only come to the school board meeting once a year, and that is on that date, to say something.
Look at your audience.
Bob.
I agree with Lynn on this. There are always a couple of people who get up and speak and share their thoughts of an advisory nature. And I think we do want to hear the public, and it would be unseemly if they showed up and didn't have this opportunity.
Oh, so I misunderstood then. If this warrant is not on there, we take away that?
Not necessarily. No, we would still do it in practice. Neil.
The person would have to know Robert's rules to get in, where if it's here, they get a chance to get up and speak.
Understood then. Okay. Thank you.
Lisa,
Yes, Winston.
the clerk has to record those idea of that intent of the speaker. Without it in there, you can talk all you want, nobody else listen or report it, or even bring it up again.
You swayed me. Thank you.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Good. Moving right along. Under board chair report, I just want to let you know that Scott wasn't able to join us tonight, and he sends his apologies. Also, we were aware ahead of time that Karen wouldn't be able to join us either. And I'll move then to the superintendent's report.
Thanks. I included in your packet a bunch of information about the NHSBA Delegate Assembly. Just wanted to call your attention to it and point it out. I do have a field trip that needs approval. It's for the band. And it's next year, December 28th, 2018 to January 2nd, 2009. They will be traveling to Florida to participate in the National Outback Bowl Music Festival. And they will have the requisite number of chaperones as required by policy.
Would anyone like to make a motion to?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Sorry, opposed? Abstentions?
Last week, I announced at both Finance and Facilities and also at the Budget Committee the following information relating to the oversight and operations of the business office for the immediate future. I also emailed that information to the board, but I wanted to read it into the public record tonight as well. The district is contracted with Municipal Resources to provide professional consulting services relative to the operations of the business office. MRI, it's their anagram, has assigned David Jack, who is an experienced school business administrator, to provide support to the SAU in the absence of the business administrator. It is anticipated that Mr. Jack will be on site at the SAU approximately 1 day a week, with additional work to be performed remotely. He was actually in last week. We've been communicating frequently in the interim, and he'll be here on Thursday for the full day as well. As I previously stated, I continue to oversee all central office operations for the district, including supervision and oversight of the district's business department. Working with our competent and dedicated staff, I'm confident that the business department will continue to operate uninterrupted. And that's all I have for tonight.
Thank you very much. And do we have anything under business administrator's report?
Not tonight.
Will we get to meet David at some point?
Depending on his schedule. He's working with MRI, he's consulting in a couple of other districts as well, and he is retired, so.
In Karen's absence, would anyone care to give a Finance and Facilities Committee update? We do know that most of their work that they did in their most recent committee meeting was revolving around those warrant articles that we just approved.
It was pretty much the whole thing.
Yeah.
It was.
For Policy Committee, we have 3 policies in front of us, and on behalf of Scott, I could move these, or if anyone else from the Policy Committee would like to speak to them. No? All right. On behalf of the Policy Committee, I'd like to move Policy BEA, regular board meetings. I'm sorry. ILDA was one of the 3. And you all have your copies of policy ILDA. Is there a second for that?
Second.
Is there any discussion on this policy? Nick?
Can you just, for the public listening in, give a very basic bit of speech on this?
I can do that. So in 2015, this policy was initially adopted as a result of legislative action governing non-academic surveys to require, at that time, that parents have the opportunity to opt out of those for their children and be given a certain time frame in which to review the content of the surveys and to make their decision. This past legislative session, the law was changed to an opt-in procedure, with the exception of the Youth Risk Behavior Survey, which was called out in this revision as an exemption to that opt-in policy. And so the only change here is to change the opt-out to an opt-in and to add the exception of the Youth Risk Behavior Survey.
Any questions about that or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Brings us to policy JLCC, communicable diseases. Would anyone like to,
I'll move this one.
Second.
any discussion on this? Nick?
I guess I'll just say it, for this and the next one, can we have a little bit of
I can
small
address this
speech?
one.
Yeah.
The board was looking to update our policy on communicable diseases. We did some research. I discovered there are 3 kinds of conjunctivitis. I'm not going to share any more details than that. So we looked at conjunctivitis, which is something that happens in schools enough to be noteworthy. Head lice. We dropped tuberculosis. That's not typically one that we see much of anymore. So we looked at other school board exemplars of this. We talked to our school nurse, and we really wanted to put something in place that gave the nurses some ability to send kids home if their illness was communicable, or that they were not comfortable enough to remain in school, and also to give the nurses some control on when kids were readmitted and what kind of documentation we might need to see for that. And so that was the effort that you see here.
And also to make sure that children weren't unnecessarily excluded.
Thank you, correct.
Phyllis?
Yeah, I'm going to vote against this because of the head lice. Being a teacher, a parent, a principal, I've seen all sides of it.
And even though they recommend it here, I realize that that spreads, and that spreads very quickly. And the reoccurrence of the same people having it. And my personal opinion is, I honestly would not want my kids bringing it home. I've seen teachers scared of this catching it in the classroom, and people just allowed to be in there. So my conscience tells me I'm voting no.
If I remember correctly, part of that discussion in the committee was.
Thank you.
That the student wouldn't be admitted back into class until after the school nurse felt that they were symptom-free. So it would kind of be like the student gets to school, first stop is the nurse's office. Betty.
I agree with Phyllis, and to my knowledge, a few years ago, there was an advisory at the state level that told us not to exclude kids because of head lice.
That's correct. The recommendation was not to exclude, to follow the recommendation of the American Pediatrics.
Is there any other discussion?
Can I just clarify, our present policy says what in regards to that?
The present policy, if I remember correctly, it says that the student is excluded.
Okay.
Can be sent home in the middle of the day. Yeah. Betty.
One more question. If we vote in favor of this, does our vote outweigh the advice from the state?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Yep. Anyone else? All right.
I have a question. Is this policy inconsistent with the advice of the state?
Yeah.
Or is it consistent?
No, this policy says that the student should not be excluded, so it's consistent with what the state recommends.
That's what I thought, but I don't think that's what I heard recently around the state.
Student will not be excluded for head lice.
And I will be voting in favor of this because it is consistent with existing state Department of Education policy.
Any other comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
No.
So as to Winston and Neil. And abstentions? Good, that brings us to policy ECAD, which is playground policy. Lisa, do you want to speak to this one?
Sure. I think, Lisa, you were the initial genesis for taking a look at our lack of a policy regarding playgrounds. I think playgrounds fell into categories in other policies, but there wasn't anything specific to the play areas that we have on our properties. And so we started with some, you put together a really nice compilation of information that you researched regarding, safety with playgrounds. And we shared that with principals. I know the principals came to the policy committee and had a conversation about how they handle playground safety in their buildings. And so I took a look at the policy draft and kind of weeded out those pieces that were really more procedural or building specific, and also shared it with council because there is no bulletproof. There's no boilerplate playground policy from the New Hampshire School Boards Association. So I wanted to make sure that what we were crafting was in accordance with any laws or didn't put us in any situations that we didn't intend. And so this was the resulting policy that the committee has moved forward.
And when I initially had this idea, it was because we have playgrounds in our district that are sometimes out of compliance. We don't know that. We don't have a way to evaluate whether they're in compliance. There are playgrounds being constructed, and there are no rules about how it should be constructed or what features should be included or excluded. And also, I had a specific concern about students with disabilities and hoping that we could create a policy in the future that the playgrounds should be accessible or at least have accessible features for students with disabilities. There was no such thing as a playground policy anywhere, not the School Boards Association, as Lisa said. So we had to start from scratch and give it a policy number, and here we have, yes.
Could you speak a little bit about compliance, as who we're looking, what organizations or state level? What are we talking about compliance-wise?
The Department of Education says that we should reference the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission's Playground Safety Handbook.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right. Winston?
Yeah, right now, our playgrounds are not posted except for because I saw the signs when we were there visiting.
The playgrounds are starting to have age-appropriate
That's what I mean.
age levels on
I know
them. yes.
Cutler has this. I haven't seen it in any other playground in our district.
It'll show up,
Now it will.
yeah.
But it doesn't say it has to be posted out for people to read.
The Playground Safety Handbook says that you do have to put the
That's
age
not
level.
out where people can read it, or see what they need to do or not do. Where we need to post the playgrounds for the age groups and remind people about non-supervision between off hours.
If by this policy we agree that we want to follow the advice of the Playground Safety Handbook, then we would have to put the age levels on each of the playgrounds, because that's what the handbook says to do. Phyllis?
Yeah, I like the policy. I've lived with this kind of thing. What I do believe, it should go a step further, saying once we report it and something is deficient or anything, what is the next step? That it seems like we should have a protocol.
There are procedures that followed with this, I believe. Yes.
That's correct.
And those procedures would say where to go with what issues so that they can be resolved. Nick?
I think as a new policy, this is a good starting point, and I'm happy to support it.
Right. Anyone else?
I'd prefer to move forward with this, and if it needs enhancements going forward beyond that, then that would be appropriate.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Very good.
Do we need, can we just do that for creating a new policy? Okay.
And in fact, if we wanted to, we could submit it to the School Boards Association and see if they want to make it a model policy for other districts.
I didn't know if we need to do a roll call vote for creating new policy.
I don't
believe so.
No?
don't think so.
Okay.
Sorry, I misunderstood. Are there any other committees that want to give a report? All right. We had a request from, was it Rob Colbert? You asked for a review of the professional services, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Our recommendation is to refer this to finance. Would the board feel that that's an appropriate step with this? Would anyone like to make a motion to refer this to finance?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Is there any discussion? Nick?
And where did that recommendation come from?
Lisa, actually.
Okay.
Anyone else? All right, all in favor of moving this to finance?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Good. Under continued discussion about the Troy and Emerson reconfiguration, we did receive a response from Dave Lapointe on the timeline that would be necessary if we wanted to accomplish this for next school year. What he said to us and reported to the Facilities Committee is that if we wanted to do this reconfiguration for next school year, he would need very little notice, and not to allow that to be a barrier, because the most that he would have to do is to take care of some bathrooms, make them more appropriate for preschool age, or am I right about this? There already is a preschool at Troy School, so we decided even that's not a factor. And there already is a preschool at Emerson, so we'd be fine as far as he's concerned. So we can check that off our list. We have 2017 building assessments. I know this is something that the board wanted to carefully review before making any sort of decision. Sorry about that. So I would encourage us to take those building assessments and look at them carefully.
Lisa?
Yes.
Coming around now is a worksheet I took all of the assessments with all of the short-term, mid-range, and long-term estimates for what each building would need. And I went with the higher end on all of them, just, worst-case scenario budgeting. And just so you could see, kind of in one place by building, and then by, kind of what that total would be in the short term, in the mid-term, and the long term, and then all together. And if you would like a hard copy of the actual assessments, I do have copies here for you. I know you got them electronically, but you can't write on your computer screen. So if you want those, you can have them.
So we're not going to discuss that?
If you feel that you have, sure, I'll welcome discussion on this, but we'll have to discuss it more after others have had a chance to review in 2 weeks as well. If you have something that you want to comment right now, you could. Nick?
Just very quickly, I've read through, I'm not going to say all of the engineering reports, because I think a few of them, a couple of them I didn't get until more recent, but the first set that we got, I read through. I don't think the general public is going to read through all of those, so I think this is very useful information for people that just need some quick numbers and having an understanding of what costs the districts are looking at. Cost the district is looking at for our infrastructure moving forward, just to maintain what we have. It's a very good aggregate of data. Thank you.
Okay. As far as next steps in this process, I'd suggest that we look at the building assessments for at least 2 weeks. We come back together 2 weeks from now, and we start to determine whether we feel it's appropriate to make a specific motion on consolidation of Troy and Emerson schools. And if so, we should take board members and assign them as points of contact or liaisons to each of our interest groups. And right now, we've identified 4 interest groups: the staff of Troy and Emerson schools, the unions, parents and students, and also taxpayers and selectmen. Are there any other stakeholders that we should be thinking about right now? Okay. Neil?
What, are you considering to just Emerson and Cutler?
Yeah, that's what this,
Troy, excuse me?
that's what this agenda item is regarding, yes. All right, so,
You publicized that pretty good.
yes, we did.
In regards to that, Madam Chairwoman, the evaluations of the buildings, are those are on the school district website, right? For the
Yes, they
public
are.
to see?
Yeah.
The budget committee has them as well?
Yes. Yeah. I think what would be good for us to do is, in 2 weeks, if we're going to entertain a motion, then we should do so. And then we should assign a liaison from the board for each of these 4 stakeholder groups. In my mind, that might be me, Scott, Winston, and Phyllis. We would each have a group and be the liaison to that group. And we would go to those groups and have a meeting to gather pros and cons. Just initial pros and cons, and then come back to the full board with the compiled list of pros and cons, so that the board knows whether it is appropriate at that point to start putting together public information sessions. All right, Nick?
I don't know which of those 4 groups they would fit in, or if you wanted to create another group, but busing, the bus company.
Okay.
That's going to be an important piece of, a very, very important piece of this.
Good point, thank you. And just in the same way that we did a quick question of our facilities manager, we might want to just administratively do a quick question of first student to see where they stand on that too. Not necessarily a full-on information session or anything like that. Okay.
I don't think they're going to replan routes for us, but they have to be able to take a top-level look at it, see what's possible.
They're doing runs back and forth right now, but just with vans, not a full-size bus. Yeah, Brian?
2 questions. First, if we could, and I understand and appreciate Dave's time is valuable, could we just request that he be in attendance at the next meeting, so if we have any questions? Is that... Second question, and understand it might not be at anyone's fingertips right now, but is there a number in a dusty closet somewhere of the request for the middle school price tag, years, 5 or 6 years ago, like ballpark, where are we starting? I see this long-term number here at 25.5 million. Well, just so we have some comparison's sake to, if we want to decide on, if we want to start a conversation on whether there's value in maintaining what we have now, or, maybe a different conversation of, potentially a new K through 8 middle school at this point, if it makes more sense at this point in time.
The construction of the new consolidated building was on a warrant article, I want to say in 2007 or 2008. So the number's out there, and we could easily
I
find
mean, I
it.
understand it,
Go up 3%.
most likely be more expensive, but, for comparison's sake, where are we at?
Okay, good, so we'll have that for next meeting. Any other information we want for next meeting? I see you, go ahead.
On this topic, but not about next meeting, where on the website are the engineering surveys?
Billy sent a link in
Yeah.
Where's that?
Where could the general public find them? What's the navigation to that?
Under the facilities
I
department.
assume,
Page 69.
Facilities Department?
Well, they do across.
Page 69 on the internet?
69 on your website.
Okay. Thank you. All right, is there any other discussion on this topic at this time? All right, we'll expect to have this on the agenda for next meeting. Do I have a motion on the manifest?
Yes, you do.
question.
Hold on.
I'd like to move the manifest to the amount of
You can tell by looking at it,
$1,000,000.
it doesn't add up.
Right.
Take a look at your math on that total.
Yep.
They aren't adding up, going down?
It should, it doesn't.
No, they're adding up going across.
What does the total mean?
Total's also across. So Cutler's total would be $2,411,000, combining the short-term, mid-range,
So we
and
shouldn't have
long-range.
totals on the bottom then?
And then the totals across the bottom, all of the short terms, 5,528,000. All of the mid-range would be 4,085,000. All of the long range would be 15 million. So the grand total.
So, but they're supposed to be adding, but if you...
Yeah, I know, I see what you're saying. They did add up before.
Because it's...
I think you better take another look at it.
Yeah, because it's...
Either that or rewrite it.
Yeah, something's wrong with the formula.
Okay,
Yep.
sorry about that.
I found that price tag in the middle school,
Yeah.
What was the price tag of the middle school?
18.7 million.
How much?
That was the... that was the
18,700,000.
Which one?
Is that for the last school edition?
No, that was
And
for...
Monadnock Region voted to remove a plan for up to an 18.7 million for a new middle school.
And what year was that?
This is 2008.
2008. All right, so we'll check that one off the list. And we'll move back to the manifest. Thanks, Betty.
You're welcome. I'd like to move the manifest in the amount of $1,258,479.58.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Very good. We have the minutes from December 5th. Anyone like to move the minutes?
So move
Second.
for the public ones.
Yeah. All in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed? And abstentions? All right. Moving on to the non-public, would anyone like to move those?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Good. All right, next meeting's agenda. So far, I have Troy and Emberson on there again. we'll have to do the supports, does not support for the warrant articles. Yes.
Have we gotten away from approving sealed minutes?
No,
No?
don't think that we had any.
We did from the last meeting.
Did we?
We did not, we neglected to include them in this packet. We'll get them in the next one.
Okay. We had a non-meeting with the lawyer. We did seal some of the non-public. That happened after. Anything else for next meeting's agenda?
Yeah, I got my hand up.
Yeah, go ahead.
We have Miss Fortune's charges, please.
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
Miss Fortune's charges.
And we'll address that in non-public if it's not addressed in non-public this evening. Anyone else? Good, good, good. All right, that brings us to second public comments then. Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. What a wonderful meeting. I just wanted to point out on the discussion of the warrant articles, when you had the discussion about the Gilsum roof being included, if you look at your engineering reports, Troy also, the cost of the Gilsum roof in their engineering report is approximately $66,400. And that's listed as the #1 short-term fix that's needed. Troy also has a #1 short-term fix that's needed, and that's repairing the slate roof and replace the roofing on the north side of the gymnasium. That happens to be exactly $65,000, the same basic amount of money. If we're going to make a shift between students, this Troy Emerson move, my feeling is that we should put some money into the buildings where we're putting these students and shifting them around. The question on the middle school cost is very appropriate, because once you go through and you add up all these costs on these engineering studies, they come pretty damn close to $18 million. So we can either keep spending millions of dollars to fix, or we can look at another building. But like I said, I would strongly suggest you reconsider your warrant articles and make the roof repair Troy, since you're going to be investing, or at least looking at investing, in combining the population of Troy and Fitzwilliam. Or the selectmen in Troy could write a warrant article to spend, according to the school board study, $65,000, and let them box it out on the ballot. Who knows? But it'd be a lot better to address these problems that we paid for to have identified. Let's go at them. Let's get them fixed. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments? All right, we do have a couple of non-public sessions that we'll have to go into. So we'll have a recess for now while the board gets ready for non-public sessions.